Today, oh boy, I should really shave. This is ChillPoint.
I think Paul's saying.
Me
Do you
neither.
think he unmuted us?
I don't know. I heard him breathe.
Hey, oh, this is so much better now.
Yeah.
I feel so much more aerodynamic.
Beard looks good, yeah.
How's it going, everybody?
Good.
Welcome to ChillPoint, the show where we chill and we talk about video game news, or also about the TV or the movie Maleficent 2,
Yes.
Electric Boogaloo. I don't know what the subtitle of it is.
Mistress of Evil.
Yeah, Mistress of Evil is the actual subtitle.
Now I am the mistress. Only a mistress of evil doth.
For those of you who haven't seen the show before, we do CheckPoint on Loading Ready Run.
Mm-hmm. We've expected that you've watched it already.
YouTube.com/Loading Ready Run. Show about all the video game news that happened last week. That is a very tightly written show.
Yeah, very incredibly tight knit that you could never pull out anything extra within it.
Couldn't even get through the entire intro without laughing.
I know, right?
When you said, if you've never seen the show before, I thought for sure you're going to be like, so Maleficent's the one who put a curse on Aurora. And I thought that was going to be where you were going to go with that sentence.
We just synopsize the various Disney movies.
Yeah.
Look,
But not the cartoon ones. The weird other Disney movies.
The superior live-action versions.
Sleeping Beauty is just a tale of warning that if you think not inviting that awful family member to your party is going to make it easier later, you're wrong.
Yeah, I love that idea that it's if they had just sucked it up, because it's a public event, right? Their unveiling of a royal baby is a public event. If they just sucked it up and invited Maleficent to the party, then everything would have been fine. She would have showed up with a really awesome gift. All the other fairies would have been like, oh shit, we got to make an even better gift.
I feel like that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back or whatever. I feel like if she maybe would have found some other way to curse things.
No, maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, so video games, I guess.
So video games.
Well,
The last week or yesterday we did an episode of CheckPoint, which I think might have had the most or the longest stories we've ever done. I think it definitely, from my perspective, it had the most graphics that I've ever done.
Yeah. You know what, though? It was episode 400, so
Yes.
it deserved all of that.
It
There we
needed
go.
a special treatment.
That was completely intentional.
And for
Three
that
stingers.
for that commenter who pointed out that we never did an episode 288, if we label it as 400, it is episode 400.
Yeah. Doesn't matter what the number is.
I don't
title
care
is.
what episodes we've missed.
There were 32 graphics on this one, which
Oh,
considering
wow, that
there
is
are
a
normally
lot.
considering there are normally three the base level is 3 graphics in a story, is what I try to do for stories.
I gave you a lot, I realized.
But there were a lot of, there was stuff that needed to be illustrated, and also, there were longer stories. But
Yeah.
both, when usually how the division of labor works out is, Graham or Kathleen and Beige will be writing the stories, and then I'll be doing the graphics for the stories. And so sometimes there can be a disconnect between what they're imagining the graphics will be when they write the story versus what I come up with. Because sometimes they'll be writing it the night before, and then I'll be doing the graphics in the morning. So there won't necessarily be direct communication. And so we've started to get better at the people writing the stories putting notes in the thing, being like, "This is the graphic that I'm talking about here."
Yeah.
When I say
I kind of
the whatever.
I waffle between either like I'll mark a section and be like, for this I want, here's a link to the graphic I want, or there'll be a comment that's for like another piece is like a comment that says something like this, like give me a soothsayer, Paul, like whatever you think a soothsayer looks like. And Jesus, you picked a wild one. I was like, oh, that's good.
Well, because it's always like, what, you're always trying to get, because the thing with the shoulder graphics, little behind the scenes stuff, but I mean the things with the shoulder graphics is you're always trying to get like kind of encapsulate or sort of go along with what the person is saying, and so usually you want like a very sort of iconic image. If it's not just like Microsoft and then the logo of Microsoft, but like for instance that like soothsayer. I was searching around for pictures of like soothsayer or seer or like blind soothsayer thing and stuff, and because you want to get not just like some random picture, but something that will be like immediately clear what it is. So the picture that's in the episode is from Vikings, I believe. Show, but it's just like a really funky blind kind of. He's got like a bunch of not only blind but like kind of stuff
Scarred
over his eyes. Yeah.
Paul had really good timing on this last episode because Beach points at pictures a couple of times for them to change, and they like changed immediately as he like touched the thing, which was really cool.
We definitely like we talked about like we got in there about, we were sitting down to do the actual work at about like quarter after 12:15, I think, is when we were all kind of like sitting down and being like, okay, let's talk a little bit more what's going on. But we spent the next 30 minutes going through the episode talking about, I'm going to do this and I'm going to pause for a second or two, and then I'm going to do this again because I want to kind of have this element. And so we had little bits of, is this right? Is this right? Let's go over the lower thirds.
Some actual blocking.
There was a
cool.
lot of that going on in this episode.
I like, Beach had to say, it's like, I'm going to pause here. That's not because I've forgotten or like I can't read the next, or like I messed up the next line. That's intentional.
I mean, that's fair.
Because sometimes it'll be like, oh, the prompter stopped working, or the whatever, the Raspberry Pi exploded.
Yeah, that happened twice. You only saw the one on the episode. That happened to us
I only
twice.
shut off the one. Actually, I think the only the one got recorded for me.
Okay.
Not actually exploded. The Raspberry Pi that we use to power our teleprompter has a bad habit of just being like, I have no Wi-Fi. And it's like, oh, you can't connect to the network? It's like, no, you have not installed Wi-Fi in me. And it's like, I think you'll find we have. You were using it a minute ago. It's like, nope. Wi-Fi doesn't exist.
When I type in ifconfig, you have 3 interfaces. It's like, no, WLAN 0 is. It's like, you just printed WLAN 0. It's like, it doesn't exist. I'm like, it's right in the. Anyway, so.
Nope.
I will say this.
You can't get internet over the sky. It doesn't make sense. Nope.
When I have to write up the description for the CheckPoint episode that goes up, and it's like, oh, here's what the stories you guys did were about. And it's like, oh, okay, well, this one was primarily about Microsoft. So just like, oh, Microsoft. And this one was about EA Sports and stuff. And then it's like, Beach had a long ranty story about where he starts with Hyrule Warriors and then goes over here. What the heck did I just... Video game expectations, I hope.
I like that it starts... It not only... It starts talking about like Hyrule Warriors and Nintendo.
Yeah.
Kind of takes a detour into Graham's story.
Yep.
Like I was like, wait, are you just talking about the thing that Graham just talked about? Oh, I see. And then we go back into
You know that meme where it's like the off ramp, and you can go this way and you can do a story on this, or you can take the off ramp at the last second. It's like, that's kind of what my story was like, I could talk about, no, we're gonna go do. I want to talk about online speculation and how it's just a massive pain for everyone who's involved.
I'm getting better at the tweets for the show, though. No one wanted to talk about the pickling of the eggs, but people were more upset when I said autumn was the best season. So I'm getting there. I just need to get a little further.
Yeah, autumn's the best season. It's everything tastes like smoke.
Okay, usually things aren't on fire.
Mm-hmm. What's our first game we're going to talk about? We've really just...
Speaking of going in weird directions. So yeah, let's talk about the actual stories that we did during this one, which the first one was talking about the Xbox Series S, which I guess is like the biggest actual like industry news. I guess that happened this week is that it was rumored, and then there was a weird leak that was like from the manual of a controller that was like, will work with Xbox S and X, and people are like, what's an Xbox Series X or S?
Yeah.
If you're
Xbox
on a bad
Series
radio
X.
connection, as we know from the phonetic alphabet, X and S are not good letters to have to differentiate.
Yeah,
So
that's why Sierra and X-Ray
Yeah.
don't sound the same.
Hopefully, nobody has to like order a whole bunch of them over a bad. I don't know. Maybe the Arctic Research Station in the middle of a blizzard has to order a bunch of Xboxes, and they end up with the wrong model by mistake. I don't know. I don't know what circumstances that could be an issue, but yes.
Xbox also did the tweet like I swear it was like midnight or 1 a.m. our time, where it was like, oh, I guess we should tell you that's a thing.
Yeah, we should finally come clean.
I guess we'll come clean about the thing that you already kind of know about.
Yeah, it's like we kind of, because I guess it had been spread around fairly extensively, I guess.
Yeah.
And so of course the thing is compounded by the fact that of course if you've got like an iPhone, the iPhone XS is the big iPhone.
Yeah.
Just to confuse things even more. Anyway, that's
the
hard.
10S.
That's not really.
Yeah, the XS is the smaller one, isn't it?
No, it's not X, it's 10. The X is pronounced 10 for the iPhones. That makes it even more difficult.
Shouldn't allow Roman numerals near our...
Right, so...
Anyway.
Yeah.
So the big thing, or the thing that Graham was talking about with this, is that Microsoft has been very big on that if you get the Series, if you get the Series S, it's not going to be playing, your experience playing the games is going to be just as good. It's just lower resolution.
Yeah.
That's like the big thing that they're emphasizing. Like the hard drive is a little bit smaller, but other than that, it's supposed to be the big thing is that it's going to be exactly the same as the big one that costs $200 more, but it just is optimized to run at lower resolution.
Yeah, and that's a completely fair thing to make, right?
It's meant to be a cheaper option. Is going to be not maybe a great option if you're into physical media because it doesn't look like it has the disk drive.
But what I also think is interesting about it is that it's like we've released the console and the Pro console at the same time. Or you can look at this as the console and the light version of the console, but it's kind of like I like thinking of it more as like because the PS4 and then the PS4 Pro came out, and all those kind of and the Xbox One and the Xbox One X, and it's like so now that's like we just decided rather than release this and then release the better one later, we'll just release the regular one and the better one at the exact same time. You can have whichever one you want. It's kind of the feeling I'm getting.
And now the interesting thing though is of course, as anybody who's played PC games know, there's a lot of variables to the performance of a game other than resolution. Your how your textures are set up, how you do your shadows, how you do your the quality of your textures, the quality of your stuff, what kind of anti-aliasing you're using. Shadow, all this kind of stuff. There's tons of things that affect your frame rate in a game, or then the quality of the video, of the visuals in the game. And something also that we know, one of the technologies that Xbox has actually talked about with the even on the Xbox One is they've got cool variable resolution technology, which is actually like legitimately neat. Although, you know, depending on how much it actually affects the view. Where basically what it can do is it can render a scene at different resolutions depending on the area of what it's actually rendering. And so theoretically that, you know, can save some processor power by doing that. And look the same because it's, you know, rendering big fields of stuff at a lower resolution than other stuff. So the question will be whether the difference is just the resolution or whether they start kind of creeping in to, it's like, yes, it's a lower resolution, but also, you know, your draw distance is going to be a little bit less. Your texture resolution is going to be a little bit less. You know, the whatever, you know, your water reflections aren't going to be quite as nice. You know, starting to get into that kind of stuff as well. It'll be interesting to see because there's a lot of ways they can kind of sort of hide the difference in quality between the two. I'd be interested to see. I forget what the name of them. There's a couple of companies that do really rigorous graphics and hardware analysis on consoles.
Oh, like Digital Foundry?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Digital Foundry. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what they come up with when they do a, you know, real head-to-head comparison of these.
I mean, isn't the Xbox the one that said that when you download the game, it will download the optimal version to the device that you have? For the device you have? Wasn't that them?
I mean, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard them say that specifically, but I mean, that makes
the case.
Sense. It makes sense that they wouldn't download the 4K
because they were very heavy
resolution.
on advertising the idea that if any of the games that they have coming out should also work on the Xbox.
Yeah,
for the first year.
Yeah, they've been big on, and even on PC in a lot of cases that they have this like Xbox Live or whatever, so it'll work on like PC and Series S and Series X, and in some cases Xbox One as well. And there's a bunch of Xbox One games that are coming out like now that will be getting free upgrades to Series S or the Series.
On the optimistic side, what I think is also neat about this though is you're basically getting the next gen console at the price break price at the very beginning of the next gen thing, because they've said, rather than, you know, be like, well, it has to always be a $500 thing. They're like, we can sell you the S. You can play next gen games if you haven't yet bought a new, or if you're looking to replace your Xbox One because it's old, long in the tooth, or whatever. I have no idea. It's like for $300 you can buy the thing that is still better than your Xbox One. It's 3 times the current performance, but it's only $300 US. And like, that's actually a pretty major step forward. Nintendo chose to not compete on the generation path with Sony and Microsoft and said, we'll make the Switch. And yes, it's going to be a more underpowered device, but that's because we're giving you a different kind of experience with it. Sony's like down the torpedoes full speed ahead on making, both PS5s are probably going to be roughly the same price.
Yeah. Well, no, the one will still be a little cheaper because it doesn't have the disk drive in it. So they are making essentially but the one model.
But the interior capabilities of both PS5s are identical, right? So you take the drive out, you maybe can get a $100 price break out of that maximum. That still puts you at $499 and $399 if that's what they end up doing. That's still not $299, right?
If you look at the evolution of console prices over the last couple of generations, $299 is like, that's a real. That's like, what is the Switch going for these days? More than that, isn't it?
No, I think that might be close to its price. The problem is these are American prices because I think the Switch is 400 Canadian.
So it's probably still coming in at about $350.
It'd be a $350 at most American, but I think it might be closer to $300.
I bet someone in the chat will know immediately what what it costs in the United States for
most
Switch
of
is
the time.
$300 US. Okay, interesting.
But
So, yeah.
the idea of the new Microsoft console coming out at the same price as a Switch or whatever is that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I know, like, from my perspective, as somebody who doesn't have a 4K television, seems like there's no reason for me to get the Series X. Like, maybe I get the Series S. I wasn't really thinking about getting either, but now I'm kind of thinking that maybe that would make sense. So I guess fair play to Microsoft if they can pull it off.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. And aside from the continued good-natured ribbing about Microsoft's horrific naming system for the Xboxes, which is,
I mean, they're not the first company to have bad naming, and they won't be the last.
yeah. At least it's not the new Xbox.
The new iPad.
So yeah, the story where I led off with Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, and boy was I proud of my initial jokes on that. The story that I actually wrote was the larger thing about the trend of everyone trying to guess when the latest Nintendo Directs are coming out, when such and such company is going to announce a price, how do we know when anything is happening and what we're going to see and what's going to come out of it? Nobody knew that Sony was going to do two PS5s, as we just recently mentioned that they're doing that. There was no reason to expect that Microsoft was dropping a surprise announcement on stuff, and it's like it feels like this year surprise announcements have kind of been the norm. And that's what I wanted to kind of underline.
A little
with the story.
bit in certain aspects, like a lot of the stuff about Nintendo, where it's like, oh, no one knew that this Direct was dropping, isn't true. There were rumors, there were leaks about a Nintendo Direct coming. Nobody expected it to be a partner Direct.
Yeah.
And they got things that they weren't expecting with, which is really where like a lot of, where at least half of the outcry comes from, because when you're expecting something of a higher expectation and you get something lower, it's really weird. And I mean, yeah, the whole everything being a weird mishmash is, I believe, your point, which is that it's 2020, everything is not running the way you expect it. A lot of these announcements were things we would have gotten at E3.
Sure. Yeah.
100%. I believe without that much doubt that the Hyrule Warriors Calamity video that they put up, especially with a thing at the beginning that's like, hey, you'll have to wait a little longer for more Breath of the Wild 2 news, was meant for E3. That seems like a weird thing to start a video about. But
also it is something that they didn't run back in June either. They chose to put this out in September. Waiting a couple months to have that happen. And it's like, there's been so many differences that it's like, it's kind of not worth it to be engaged in the kind of like, I really wanted to get into the whole thing of that. A lot of this online speculation, because Heather tells me a lot about this, because she hangs out on several subreddits where they have this. And it kind of, every time I hear about people talking about when's the next Direct, when am I getting my next Direct, it's like, it's always a weird stew of entitlement, argument, sniping, driving people off of subreddits. Like, it's always full of a bunch of drama that I don't understand why it needs to be full of a bunch of drama. Normally it's like, what do you think the next thing is? Oh, it'll be so cool if it's this, if it's this, if it's this. But then it turns into a thing of like, well, who has the information? And why isn't it's 100% accurate information or riot. It's just kind of how the speculation threads devolve into.
It definitely is. Generally, okay, the concentrated version of the drama that I give you is not quite that compact. It's usually a lot smoother out. It's like, it's been worse this year because for long gaps of time we didn't really know what Nintendo was doing because they hadn't announced things, and I'm not sure if they really feel like they were probably scrambling to try to figure out what they were doing. So like long bouts were just like, we're going to talk about pizza now because we have nothing to talk about, but we all want to be here. And then, we got some news
in the Nintendo subreddit.
It's like the Desert Bus Survivors chat. It's like, well, we better keep this thread rolling.
It's not a subreddit, but I don't want to give away where I hang out. It's and the thing is, there are people who show up, and this happens on Twitter and Reddit and everywhere, where they're like, oh, no, I've made a new account and I know everything. And sometimes they're legit. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they do know the thing, but they didn't guess the thing correctly, and then they get harassed a lot, and then they're like, okay, I'm never doing this again. Or they were making stuff up hoping they were going to be right. And then they get driven off because those ones are asshats.
And that sense of like, it comes back to the same thing. Like, it's not that somebody was lying on the internet. It's always like, why would you bother lying on the internet, really? Because what do you like? The only thing you really get out of it is if you enjoy stirring the shit, right? Then that's kind of the thing. And I'm like, and I don't see the point of that anymore. It's there's so much other shit going on right now. Why would you want to?
Didn't you used to in your youth hang upon internet forums looking for the next big thing, waiting for the speculation, wanting to hang out with other people and speculate upon, wouldn't it be cool if they did this thing?
The unnamed point, or the point that I dropped from the story, was that I remember what it was like to be young, and I think I grew beyond it.
That's fine.
You know, it's like, I used to get really excited too, and pick up like a GamePro magazine. Like, I don't like this magazine, but I am going to look through it for whatever the rumors are.
May I propose you didn't necessarily grow upon it so much as you've changed your tastes and how you like to hang out?
Oh, it's true. I'm not saying that it's like online speculation is like, it's a cancer, must be removed. It's more of the thing of like, online speculation always seems to lead to this kind of this terrible, it's always comes up to say drama, but it's always this kind of like, there's lots of animosity that it tends to boil down to in the end. And that happens like if you're an Apple speculator, it's the same thing. If you're, any sort of person in tech, whenever you speculate, it turns into that stuff.
Sure. I don't want to imply that any of that is necessarily childish, because I enjoy it and I'm not a child.
That's fair.
There is definitely, the problem that speculation often runs into, especially these days, is speculation reaches a point where people think that it's basically like done. Like, people are like, man, everyone's speculating about this, so like it's definitely happening. And then the company that maybe doesn't even know about the speculation releases something that isn't what people were speculating about. Then people are like, we're so disappointed. And the company is like, what? We did a thing that we thought you would like. And they're like, yes, but you didn't do the thing that we thought you would do, that we really wanted.
And there's a lot of, I think...
It's like, where's Metroid 5? Like,
oh no, that one comes up actually quite a bit. That's in regards to the 2D Metroids, though. That took me a while to figure out because I hadn't actually I haven't played Metroid, so it took me a while to understand that. There's Metroid 5 is Samus, probably
Super Metroid, and Metroid Fusion.
So there is a Metroid 5. It's just not the one you think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that I
learned a lot about video games reading these threads.
Because I think there's a lot of like, I think a lot of speculation is really interesting when it comes down to, I think a lot of speculation is really interesting when I'm doing it because I try, because for one thing, I have a business degree. And I've taken a lot of courses in a lot of different aspects of business. And so I try to settle down and filter it through this thing of like, what would make sense from a supply perspective? Why would you do a thing a certain way? Like, we're like, oh, Nintendo has artificially limited the number of NES Classic devices. Remember when that was a whole thing? It's like there's a conspiracy that they're putting them out there to do limited supply, to do whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's the case. I think the issue is that they could only get so much of them produced they didn't know if it was going to sell big or not because they've had hardware problems before, and so especially coming off the Wii U,
yes,
right?
Yes, I'm not.
And so there's this thing of like, we're going to make a certain amount of these, we're going to get them into production, we're going to have them made, and then when they all went out there and sold out immediately, they're like, oh shit, crank the knobs, and they're like, we can't crank the knobs. The Chinese company that is making the thing has already moved on to the tooling for the next thing they're doing. We have to get in line behind everyone else so we can actually have stuff made. You don't just have a factory sitting idle, right? So I'm like, that's understanding the nature of like supply is, I think, a very interesting way to shine lights on how things operate in the industry.
Speculation is a lot of fun, as long as the group of people speculating, even if they're grabbing from things that they've heard and they're like, oh, I know a person who I talked to who actually works with some stuff, so there's some details, and so if we think about this and we add in this idea, maybe these things, is absolutely a lot of fun, as long as you don't take it super seriously, and you understand that all of those pieces of information are not necessarily the whole, and therefore you could be wrong. You, sir, when I go into speculation things with you do the same thing that many other people do, where you're like, no, I am correct, and this is how things are. You are not fun to speculate with.
No, I'm not fun to speculate with, because I'm right, and it's hard when somebody's being right.
But you're not.
There is definitely that, like, the like Kremlinologist. I always loved that here, you know, when I heard about that, but the idea of you know, trying to figure out what's going on based on, you know, little bits of information that come out, and you sort of you can kind of create convoluted stories that don't necessarily have that much basis.
You end up reading between the lines, and it gets you in trouble because you end up reading too far between the lines.
I mean, the real hero of the story is that Hyrule Warriors gets a sequel, and it's a Breath of the Wild prequel, which makes it canon, probably, which means we're getting a Zelda game where you get to play as Zelda. Her name isn't on the game, but...
Is it weird that we're getting a sequel to a series that's actually a prequel to another series?
Yes.
That is really weird.
Yes. Everything about it's weird.
Yeah.
It's great. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's the... it's just Nintendo messing with the people who have been working on the Zelda timeline stuff. Yeah.
All right,
no,
I'm done talking about that.
This is a prequel that happens before the sequel.
Yeah.
Or the prequel that happens after the sequel. It's fine. All right. Other stuff. Epic's legal hootenanny.
Yeah.
Kerfuffle.
Weird thing.
This is mostly what I see this as mostly being as, so the big sort of revelation there's a bunch of documents that were submitted over the week, which is why there's like more info about it. And the big the big thing with this was this idea that Epic moved to basically have an injunction. I don't know what the technical term is, but basically have the court force Apple to allow them to put their game back in the Epic Store under the current circumstances.
The App Store.
The App Store, sorry.
Yeah.
Have them force Apple to allow their game back in the App Store until while the litigation is going on. And to me, like, what this is both Epic and Apple are like digging in for the long. Like, this is gonna this is gonna be a long thing, and so establishing what the status quo is while the lawsuit is happening is actually really important, right? And so Epic is trying to be like, you know, while this lawsuit is happening, let's just leave it the way it was.
Yeah, with Fortnite on the App Store.
With Fortnite on the App Store, with our in-app purchase system.
With what we wanted, yes.
Yeah, which is exactly how it was when it was taken down. And Apple is like, no, the reason why that was the infringement. That's not the status quo, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like, well, you know, it's like, okay, maybe you say I stole stuff, and I say it's my stuff. but while we're figuring that out, I'll just keep all the stuff. It's like, no. While the litigation is going on, it goes back to before the grievance happened.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like, so the grievance. It's like, if you wanted to go back to the place where it was when there was absolutely no like legal grievance, it would be like, put Fortnite back on the App Store with Apple's App Store rules in place, where they would get a cut of whatever it is that you're doing. That seems like a reasonable compromise, but Apple wouldn't want that either.
No, Apple has been like, yes.
Oh, put that back in the thing, and
we're totally fine with that.
As long as you follow the rules, yeah.
Yeah, we're totally fine. But not only did Epic get kicked out, they have been continually resubmitting their version that is clearly against the guidelines. They've been clearly resubmitting it over and over and over again, and getting it rejected over and over and over again.
You know what I picture here, because I've been playing it again recently. Papers, Please, where that one character, he keeps coming in and he's like, let me in, and they're like, no, and he's like, okay, now I've made a fake passport, and you're like, no,
you mean real passport,
and he's like, what? And then he just keeps coming, and you're just like, please stop. No.
It's funny because like Epic's resubmission has always been like, well, look, we've made an update. You know, we've fixed some bugs, and we've done this, we've done what, and the new chapters will be enabled for this, and this other thing is enabled for this, like that. They're saying we're doing all these changes, and Apple's like, but you're still leaving in the part that that leaves you out of the App Store, the part that skips our payments thing, and tries to do it all yourself, which we have said is against how the App Store runs, and it's like, you can keep saying that you're submitting updates, but you just you might be updating, but you're not putting things back the way they need to be in order to be back in the App Store. So we can't let you in. You could call the game something completely different at this point, and it still is a problem. Like,
sue us? We're already doing that.
Yes.
And like the court has said, Epic, maybe you should do that. So, anyway.
Yeah.
This is
the line where she's like, the judge is like, in my view, you cannot have irreparable harm when you create the harm yourself. I'm like,
good picture for that, by the way. Real good picture. Strong, very strong. Loved it.
The irreparable harm, because of course, irreparable harm is a specific legal term, right? For the purposes of this thing. So there is one of the things I saw about this is, because for stupid legal reasons, some of this stuff is like this weird, maneuvering that, while it makes no sense, it seems obviously stupid to us lay people. There are like weird legal things where it's like later on, because Epic has now claimed irreparable harm. Later on, Apple can't say, well, you never said that there was a problem with it.
Yeah.
So there's like weird little stuff like that is dumb. But anyway.
But it's important to the process. I mean,
it's important to the process,
anyway.
But I am totally fine with making fun of it. And, you know, as
yeah.
But it's we'll just, I mean, it's just definitely going to be something that continues on. If you are somebody who was really big into playing Fortnite on your iOS device, I mean, you're really the only one who is suffering on this. So that sucks. The people, the Epic's customers are kind of being used as pawns in this whole thing.
And the weird breakdown that I saw in their numbers got me, because Epic was like, oh, well, Epic Games customers, Fortnite players or whatever. Like, there's been some very specific wording that I saw in the Ars Technica article where it was like 67% of all Epic players who are Fortnite players who game on iOS are not gaming on iOS anymore. And the 34% of those that have no other platform to game on. And I'm like, okay, whoa, hang on. So what you said is the 67% of of people who are playing on iOS are no longer playing on iOS, and you're saying 34% of those people are not gaming at all, but the numbers you're using, you're basically saying that it's like, oh, we lost 67% of our entire user base. It's like, no, you haven't. You just lost the ones who are playing on iOS. 67% of them are no longer gaming on iOS. It sounds like that a big chunk of them actually went to another platform, because then you say the 34% of that 67%, which is a small, even smaller number. It's not 67 minus 34. It's like 34% of a 67% percentage of a percentage is not coming back at all. Like, that is getting even smaller. And then on top of that, they did that same thing that drives me up the wall, but where it's like millions of people are no longer playing Fortnite because of this thing that happened with iOS. And I'm like, no, that's not, because there aren't millions of people in the world that have decided to only play Fortnite on iOS. It is not the most popular place to play Fortnite. I bet you it's not the most popular place to play Fortnite. But you put that one set of words in next to some other words, and it sounds like millions of people disappeared. And I'm like, I don't think millions of people disappeared from this. I think a lot of them moved to another platform, and a vanishing chunk of people were like, I can't play anywhere else. So statistics, and damn statistics.
Yeah, it's weird in these sort of legal situations where, Epic, Epic is of course the people who are the ones who are being some of the most vocal. So that's what we're talking about. But they have this weird situation where they have to both appear. They want to appear to be negotiating from a strong position, while also making themselves appear sympathetic, that it's like, we're having a lot of trouble and we're losing all these customers and this is really hurting us, but we're strong and it's very, and Apple is going to suffer from losing our business.
Yeah.
And you sort of stuck in the sort of, anyway, that's Epic stuff. Again, we'll probably revisit that when we'll continue doing updates whenever new interesting things come out.
Yeah, it's very likely that every time there's a new thing, we're probably not going to necessarily do a story on it, but every once in a while it'll pop back up because something really weird will happen.
Yeah.
Or maybe it'll end one day in like 6 years. Who knows?
And then Bij did the deep dive on Madden 21's inclusion of Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Paul, and there was lots of images in this, and thank you for doing such a great job of getting the ideas I had in there. When you had posted this, what was your take? What was the gag you saw? Because I am curious about that. Because I know you'll post things, so you're like, this is interesting, and there's a funny bit to it.
The first thing I thought was me thinking of like, it's like, how often does Madden put people in the game who aren't actually playing football, right?
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I'm thinking, I think about like, like fighting game, like or like a Street Fighter and stuff, where they put like, and then, Spider-Man
Shaquille O'Neal,
different people are in it. And it's like, and so this idea of putting somebody, because they're putting somebody in the game who isn't currently playing. He's been, a free agent for a couple of years now, and hasn't been signed to a team. And they've given him stats that I guess are what they think his stats would be based on how he played when he was playing, right? But it is kind of an interesting thing, because we've done stories before about how they're very particular about the stats for players. Like, their updates come out on a month-by-month basis to Madden games and stuff, where they update players' like, if a player shows that they're really good, that they have improved their running game in the off season, they will actually update their stats in Madden, and that player will increase their abilities and stuff. And so the idea of putting somebody in the game, like, I don't play Madden, so I don't know if that's something relatively unique.
I think most modern sports games have been doing that as a thing, and football's big.
I
Football
mean,
and baseball are both really big on numbers.
EA makes a lot of those sports games, and if they're doing it for one of them, I imagine that they would be doing it for a number of them, at least within their game set.
Yeah. So, and that's interesting because I never actually asked you what your take was, because I know that we do that sometimes where Paul will make a list of here's stuff that I saw that is interesting and has a funny idea to it, and then post those for us to read, and inevitably I will always walk away with a different feeling on the story.
But I mean, I think that's good, right? Because then it's you aren't you're
married to us,
and you were totally right in that I didn't think about it until quite a bit later. That of course we did stories on the thing about editing his name out of the songs and this kind of stuff. So like there's tying it into that, and so that it's not just EA has always been gung ho about this, supporting him. Clearly that's not the case.
And yeah, it's funny because I didn't want to walk away with the story feeling like, hey, EA did this thing. Look at how shitty they've been to him over the last several years. EA did not do a good thing here. And I'm like, no, I actually need to highlight, because when somebody does a good thing, you need to tell them you did a good thing. And even if it's a really small thing, sometimes even just saying that's why I was like, it's fine-ish. A positive step is still a positive step. I'm like, that's something. Good for you. I mean, you did this. It does look like you were mostly just seeing what was going on around you, and you said, well, I guess this is the new normal, but everybody's been doing that over the last several years. We've all been in this thing of everyone's learning because they're like, these are things we've not had to think about before, including the thing about Roger Goodell, where he's like, he said in an interview, in his interview series called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, he said in an interview, he's like, I would listen to the stories. I would hear what these people are saying, and I was processing it. But there's a difference between just listening or hearing and actually understanding and then feeling. And he's like, I was never getting to that point. And when I finally got to the point of understanding and feeling, I realized that I hadn't been understanding and feeling this entire time. I understand it better now. I am feeling, I am getting the feeling like and I wish I had known more, and I wish I had paid more attention. I wish we had all paid more attention. Why? And in fact, why didn't we pay more attention? That's on us because we screwed up. And I'm like, I want to throw that at everyone's feet and be like, the NFL apologized. Why couldn't EA be like, we screwed up. We are sorry about this. They didn't do that at all. And I'm like, I think that's important to be like, you did a positive thing, EA, but you forgot the part where you said, we screwed up. We are sorry. And I was like, that's too bad. And also, putting dismiss at the bottom of that Black Lives Matter comment, I was like, oh my God!
That's pretty funny. Yeah, that's...
Hard to find a joke there, but I was like, wow.
The, yeah, and I mean, one of the things I saw about this, the sort of very, I guess, pragmatic take on this is that one way to look at it is that EA and the NFL obviously have a very close relationship, in that, Madden they have exclusive rights to a whole bunch of stuff, and, they spend tons and tons of money on all the stuff. So the fact that this is happening, it's not like EA is going against the NFL to put this in and being like, we're taking a stand, NFL. This is clearly with the blessing of the NFL that they're doing this.
And there's been a lot of cases where stuff like when they took Cap's name out of the soundtracks, when they took Kaepernick's name out of the soundtracks, that wasn't NFL doing that, apparently. That was EA saying, we're taking his name out of the soundtracks because we have this feeling that the NFL won't like if it's there. So we're just gonna go ahead and do this early, and it's like,
and that's a thing that some companies do. Like,
teach yourself to do it.
That's a thing that just people do, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I want to put this thing out there. I think that person will tell me no. Well, I'll take off the part where they won't like, and they'll put it in, and then they'll say yes. Like
Like, I write stories from that perspective. I'm like, I want to say a thing here, and then I go back and read it, and I'm like, if I say that, I think people are going to react poorly to that, or somebody's going to feel bad. There might be a couple people who feel bad about this thing or whatever. I'm like, maybe I'll walk that back. Maybe I'll find a different way to do that. And I'm like, I understand having to say to yourself, I'm going to make a change so that I don't upset somebody who's part of this whole value proposition. It's just that the people that EA were trying not to, it's like where their money's coming from. And it's like,
that's generally the people you try not to upset, though.
Yeah. I guess if you look at it as sort of a bellwether, that the fact that EA thinks or decided they can do this without upsetting the NFL indicates that, it's good for the idea that he's no longer persona non grata or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know if there's speculation about him actually being signed to a team yet, but
there is one team that is interested.
Sure there is, but
there is a team that is interested in, and that Chart Party episode I linked to shows why they're, even after being kind of not in the NFL for the last couple of years, like not being actively playing, it's like if his numbers are as good going forward as they were back then he's a Pro Bowler essentially.
I feel confident in saying that he's probably used his time off more productively than some of us have.
Yeah, true.
He's probably staying in fighting fit condition.
Yeah, and he's donated a ton of money to causes. Like
it's going to be the it's like, yeah, we're gonna get Colin Kaepernick in. All right, and then he comes in, like Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. Like, oh Jesus.
Let's not any of us compare our productivity to the productivity of somebody else in these times.
Yeah,
please.
That's fair.
I looked at the air quality charts and I'm like, I probably just shouldn't even go outside today. So, the fact that I'm here is good enough for me.
Yeah. Apologize if we look a little sweaty or whatever today. Can't open the windows.
Can't open the windows.
Because, while not at all, I fully respect that it's very, very much the very edge of the bad stuff that's happening in terms of wildfires and stuff. It could be very, very much worse, but there is a lot of smoke in Victoria right now.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about stuff we didn't talk about in the actual episode.
Oh, no. We need to talk about Beach's very strange wanting his ass kicked by a thick-legged lady.
Okay, I'm going to be clear.
Uh-huh.
I did not pick this coming up, and I didn't write half of it.
So both you and Graham want to be kicked in the ass by some thick-thighed ladies.
So I would never say absolute dump truck stature about anybody. I don't think that's not really my thing. But also, I never played Crash.
Does Kathleen want to get kicked in the ass by? I'm just gonna keep saying people's names until you give it up.
Crash Bandicoot was also never my series, so it's not like I give a shit about this person whatsoever. But
she looked pretty good.
She looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like they took what was essentially 4 sticks and some tits, and they turned her into an actual functional character with a reason to be there, with a cool new design and some real personality. And I'm like, that's cool. But also, they did make her quite attractive, and I was like, yeah.
She's very attractive.
And then going through the process of reading this, I'm like, I think what this is, I got to the end, and I'm like, I want to just say, I think I want her to kick my ass. I was like, I think I need to put that in there, because it's like, oh, this is being very evocative of something. What am I trying to say? I think I'm just trying to say this.
I personally, I watched the video for that because of doing the going through the articles. And I went and watched the video that Paul had put through the coming up section with the sound on, and I was like, nah, she seems really cool. I actually kind of want to play Crash Bandicoot now just to see her.
Yeah.
Never cared before, but she seems awesome.
She might be playable, maybe?
I think she is in that section.
I think there's multiple different areas. There is one of the things that ran is the alternate concept art was released as well, where she's more of like Australian outback. Almost looks like, Croc Hunter or something with like a big with a big boomerang that had kind of a cool look to it too. But anyway, the that people have had strong reactions to that reveal.
Especially the one comment I saw where it was like, quote line, Crash Bandicoot's girlfriend got a glow up, and the reply being, Crash Bandicoot's friend who is a girl got a glow up and she's gay. And I was like, oh good, we've started that road now too.
Oh, I'm sure the fan art's already there.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it was probably there before, but as somebody, like, I played some of the Crash Bandicoot. I wasn't like super into it, but I played some of them. I was like, was there like a save the girlfriend part? I guess there was. I thought it was mostly just like collect all the gems because they're gems and you're supposed to collect them. And there's the bad guy who also wants to collect the gems before you.
That was what I really liked about.
Like, it was such a perfunctory story in the in the game. It was just like, go, here's some levels.
The dialogue that she has when he shows up in that video is like, oh, so what, you gotta collect some gems? And they're like, no. Oh, you have to collect this other thing? No. Oh, to go to get this thing? Oh, okay. And I was just like, I didn't play these games, but I can recognize what they're doing there, and that was great.
That's good.
Also, the next gen, as the generations progress for Crash Bandicoot, the fact that Crash doesn't talk gets more and more kind of weird. It's like, why is he just not talking now? And everybody else is.
It's like that in Link, right? It's
yeah.
Link not saying anything is getting like people are starting to wonder. I think, but
it's like, are you okay, man?
All right, news. The stories we didn't do.
All right, stories we didn't do. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is being pushed up to come out in time for Xbox release day, which I thought was interesting, mostly because there's been a lot of stories recently about games being delayed for pandemic reasons.
Yeah,
this is one of the first ones I've seen with like, we're pushing it up earlier. Also, the implication being that Ubisoft didn't know when the Xbox release day was. They're like, oh, crap. Oh, geez. I guess we're going to do it a week earlier than we thought. Oh, dear.
Or they knew when it was, and then Microsoft pushed it up themselves, and that Ubisoft had to push it up themselves too. And Microsoft didn't tell Ubisoft.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
That's always a possibility.
So
but that's cool.
I'm going to go out. So I'm a big fan of the Assassin's Creed games. They do have a certain history of, shall we say, first day issues.
Oh yeah.
And this one being quick accelerated out the door. Maybe this might, like, it is going to be a launch title, but maybe this will be, like, the best title to evaluate your new purchase of an Xbox Series S or X on. You might get some weirdness happening, is all I'm saying.
I do always find it interesting to see a story where a game gets moved up in launch date rather than delayed, because generally the story you hear is that a game's been delayed. And so that's always neat, even if it is by Ubisoft, a company that should not be forgotten for its sex allegations.
Oh yeah, they're having some troubles. We could talk about that in a minute,
that.
actually. That might even come up next week. But Xbox Game Pass Ultimate now also includes some sort of other active online play thing.
Yeah, so EA Play, which is another Game Pass thing.
Okay.
Where you subscribe and you get access to all the EA games. Now it's just part of Xbox Pass Ultimate for no additional cost. I'm not shilling for Xbox Pass Ultimate. I don't have it, but it seems like if there's a bunch of games, it might be a pretty good deal. Because it's like, because it includes Xbox
You sign
Live.
up for EA Play, and it gives you access to games that you might not have, like it's saying here that Madden NFL 21 is available for a 10-hour gameplay trial.
So yeah, so some of the like basically how EA Play works is like the most recent games you get these like sort of demos of, but older games you have just the game. You know, you you can play it however much you want. So this adds 89 games to the Xbox Game Pass library, which already had 246 games. Now,
is this just the Ultimate, or is this the Game Pass PC? Because I know you can get like a separate thing with the Xbox Game Pass as well. That's not tied to consoles,
this is also included in the PC one. The PC one doesn't give you Xbox Live Gold, but the PC one, which only costs $5 a month, also gives you access to it. So
and Peach just posted in the chat, thank you, Evil Badman, the PC Game Pass is jumping in price from $5 to $10, and the Ultimate is Xbox's
so the PC
plus
one
the PC Game Pass.
for 14.
$14. It's like, so if the PC Game Pass is jumping up already, it's like, why not buy Ultimate? Because then you can have both of these things for $14. And
this is all part of Microsoft's, like, you get it and you can get the games for both PC and for Xbox. So yeah. So it seems like a good deal. When I hear there's all these games from the EA back catalog available, I am like picturing like that box at EB Games or GameStop that just has like all the Madden games from 2000 to 2015, like 10 copies of each.
Yeah.
So hopefully there are other old sports titles that are available.
Maybe Sims, isn't Sims an EA
I think so.
thing? Like,
First thing I thought it was like, oh, they better have the Lost Vikings, which is not.
Is that an EA?
That's a Blizzard game.
That's a Blizzard game.
I don't know why I thought it was EA, but it was like, oh, whatever.
It's also not an Xbox. That's like a Super Nintendo game.
I think they did some Star Wars stuff once. Maybe.
I don't think the Lost Vikings is going to be in there. Sorry.
You're getting GoldenEye for the Xbox?
No, that's
rare.
That was definitely not them.
Anyway.
Yeah, just Beej, any game that you're thinking of is probably a Nintendo game.
Yeah. Pretty much.
All right.
So
Sea of Thieves.
no one expects you to know EA games.
This is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Sea of Thieves is adding vaults of treasure.
Nice.
But the important part?
But the important part, dogs. You can have a sea dog, and you can pet it.
Yeah, they look really cute.
I haven't actually looked at... Oh, yeah, they do look really cute.
They're adorable dogs. They are undoubtedly good doggos.
And you can pet it, obviously, because...
I mean, you don't add a cute dog like that as DLC in this day and age and don't let yourself pet it.
This one's called Barkbeard. He has an eye patch.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot. That's good. Good for them. That's really cool.
I mean, the treasure thing seems interesting too. It's like you go around and find keys and stuff.
Yeah.
What I like about the treasure thing, actually, I like the twist to the treasure thing is you go around and you find keys, and then you can just sell the key to somebody else.
Oh.
Yeah, the final thing before going to the vault.
Or you can go and like actually get the treasure yourself. But if you're like, treasure hunting seems like a lot of work, I'm just gonna sell this key.
Yeah, give me 1,000 gold. There's probably more than that in here. I just need to get on with my life.
But it's like, from like a cinematic perspective, that's like you could be the guy from like the beginning of the movie who just is like, I have this key, and sells it to like, whatever the actual hero of the whole thing, and then people are like, oh, you bought that key from that weird guy, that's totally fake, and then it turns out to whatever. So you could just be like the person who sends somebody else on a quest as opposed to actually like doing the thing yourself, which I find kind of funny.
hey, Crusader Kings 3 already has a mod.
Yeah,
Or
I
has
mean, that
mods.
didn't take long.
I'm like, I guess because if you're used to working on them for Crusader Kings 2, you're probably like, we know 3's coming out, I guess get ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they were just able to like update a previous mod for Crusader Kings 2.
So they've worked in...
Because this sounds like extensive. Like, this doesn't sound like a mod you could make in like a week.
Yeah, because it's working in... It's called Princes of Darkness, and it's a near total conversion of the base game. So this is not... Yeah. And it's basically Vampire Simulator. It works in the Worlds of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade...
Yeah. We took Crusader Kings 3 and we threw in Vampire the Masquerade elements, which, I mean, that thing does go over has a vast timeline as like, oh, vampires have been around since Cain. So it makes sense to have a game like this with that kind of a mod. I do like some of the stuff with it where it's like you're a vampire, so you're immortal because you can't die of old age and disease, but that doesn't mean you can't die. But that does, kind of put a bit of a thing on you when the game wants you to like breed and stuff.
Yeah, the lineage aspect gets a little complicated.
Now, what blows my mind about this, because I was like, God, we kept talking about Crusader Kings, and we kept talking about Paradox Interactive, and I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, why the hell is the name of... Why does Paradox Interactive sound so familiar? They make Stellaris. I actually didn't know that, so it's like, okay, but they make Stellaris. Why does Paradox Interactive sound so familiar? Oh, right! They purchased White Wolf.
Oh!
So
yeah,
they own the World of Darkness franchise. And so they didn't shut...
Oh, are they working on Bloodlines too? Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense.
And so it's like... there's a similar total conversion for Crusader Kings 2, and the devs at Paradox were like, go nuts, it's like they were fine with that. So it's like, obviously they'd be fine with this too, because it'll probably drive more interest in Vampire the Masquerade and other World of Darkness stuff. And yeah, I guess at some point someone's going to say to Jacob, have a seat.
If someone hasn't already, I'd be surprised.
Roll some shit up. Let's see see how much you enjoy playing this weird mod to this. Like, maybe he'll be down for it. It's not a loading ready run planned thing. That just might be a thing that Jacob wants to do, so...
But so yeah, it's nice to see one of these like big total conversion things that isn't just waiting
nude patches,
waiting for the other shoe to drop in terms of getting shut down. That actually is allowed.
Speaking of which,
they got shut down.
No, Nintendo's Super Mario Brothers 35 is actually
right, yeah.
Clearly inspired by, because I don't know how it couldn't be, the Super Mario Brothers Battle Royale, or Mario Royale as it was called. There was somebody who made a Super Mario Brothers Royale-ish game where you play Mario Brothers Super Mario SMB against other people through like a web browser or whatever, and then Nintendo came along and was like, you can't do that because that's all of our IP, and shut them down. And now here they are going to put out Nintendo's putting out their own Super Mario Brothers 35, and did not involve this person in the creation of it, because why would they have to? It's their IP. And this person's a little salty about it, to the point where it's like, I guess they don't have any good ideas. And I'm like, is that what you think? They don't have any more good ideas over at
99.
Nintendo.
I don't know. But I did think it was funny that when they got shut down, that they were like, oh, I assumed this had to do with the Mario Maker 2 release. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that would make sense. It would be really shocking to see this come out now, though, when that's a thing that you did develop.
Yeah, and it's fair, but it also, like, there's every reason to believe that maybe somebody in Nintendo was working on this idea of how do we leverage other properties. You don't really know that. Maybe this is a direct, like, look at this cool idea. They are not allowed to do this because it's our IP, so shut them down. But we should really make this because we think it's a cool idea. Also, it hasn't been released yet. I don't know if Nintendo will put like an Easter egg or something in there that kind of like references this other thing. They probably won't.
That seems unlikely if you're.
Oh yeah,
that seems really unlikely. I've
been a Nintendo fan for years. I know how they work. They didn't do that for Metroid: Samus Returns, so
it's I mean, this is really, and we've talked about this before, but. If you're going to make a really cool online thing for people to play, don't use an existing IP, especially not a Nintendo IP. I know Nintendo IPs are amazing, but don't use them.
Or
gonna
if you-
get shut down. Like this guy re-released the same thing
yeah,
with a skinned to his own thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, or do this, rip off another company's IP very blatantly, so that when you get shut down for a DMCA violation, have your reskin already ready to go, because every gaming outlet on the planet will have talked about you and will have hyped your amazing game that you've made yourself.
I wonder if that really does well. Like, because, like, that's... If the suggestion is the game's actually really good, and then people go and they're like, oh, actually, the game's very good, even though it's a reskin.
Yeah.
Sure, but I feel like some people would take that idea as, well, I put Mario on it, now everyone knows about it, and now I've placed not Mario on it, and now I will be rich, and I just don't see that working well for you necessarily.
Yeah. I agree that it's never a good idea to just go ahead and use somebody else's stuff and make your own thing, but it's like, it's definitely a strategy if you want to get a lot of attention paid to the thing you're making. It's not a great strategy, especially if you're going to be a petulant jerk about it when they take your shit down when you shouldn't have done it in the first place. Like,
I mean, unless, as with the Crusader Kings thing, if you do have actual blessing from the company, not just, I'm sure it'll be fine.
yeah,
Or they haven't said anything yet, so it's probably fine. Actual blessing from the company is a different deal, obviously. But,
and speaking of Crusader Kings,
Yeah, are we going back to Crusader Kings again? We're leapfrogging a little.
yeah, so
We'll
there's
talk about the Tinder thing.
yeah, there's an event, I guess. I don't know what they're called, but there's a thing that happens, which is apparently like a real thing that happened back in the day. Is that there's basically Tinder in Crusader Kings where your king will get like sent a bunch of oil paintings of ladies from other of princesses or queens from other things, and then the interface that they actually make in Crusader Kings is actually literally swipe left and right just to be silly, apparently.
yeah, it's good.
But yeah, so you could
Oh my god.
Rich,
There are lots of
Like-
little jokes sprinkled throughout the event, like ladies insisting you only write them a poem if you happen to be over 6 feet tall.
Yeah, this is actually the article states that it's sometimes if you roll badly or whatever, you send out the same poem to several ladies, but then they all talk to each other and you find out, so you get into a lot of trouble for it.
Yeah.
But if you roll successfully, you can end up with like having a lot of lovers, and that's good in terms of like a political thing because they won't fight against you. But it's also bad for some other reasons. And
God, it's funny.
yeah.
but it's like you think people use deceptive camera angles on Tinder or whatever. How about if you just have like an oil painting that the person can just draw
if you
paint
can
whatever
afford,
you want.
If you can afford an oil painting back in those times, you have a lot of money, and that person is going to paint you in the way that you want because
Exactly,
they want
yeah.
your money.
There's actually a long-standing tradition of that too, I think, with oil paintings, where it's like, don't paint the person, paint the personality of the person, right? Paint them to look the way that they want to look. Make them look fierce, make them look kind, make them look the way that they want to look in the painting.
And there is actually a thing with like, because of course for a lot of historical figures, all we have is paintings or drawings of them. And then you'll be like paintings of like Cleopatra or whatever, or drawings of Cleopatra, and then like contemporary descriptions will be like, she's kind of plain.
Yeah.
People like she was apparently like incredibly intelligent and very powerful as a ruler, but nobody was really like big on how beautiful she was at the time. But now, I mean, like the picture we have of like Henry VI, right? That like standard picture of him, right? Where he was probably not very much like he was a pretty sick guy for a lot of his life. He probably didn't look like that most of the time.
Yeah. Do we have anything left?
I thought there was one other thing.
That's EA's.
No, okay, no, we
thing.
covered that already.
Yeah, the Capcom
Yeah, I
story.
think that might be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Various silly things going on in the world of video game stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what's coming up.
It's Friday
Especially
Night Paper Fight.
since it's Friday Night Paper Fight, where we're doing Commander, and it's going to be Kathleen and
Wheeler?
Cam and Wheeler, Ben Wheeler, and also our friend Shivam.
It's not just Commander though, is it? It's isn't it a special kind of Commander?
Yeah, it
Special
is
kind of drafting?
I don't know what the technical
Commander box?
We're
or
calling
something?
it Battle Box.
Battle
I think,
Box.
'cause
Battle Box.
You take a booster box, and that's your pool.
right.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so you make a 100-card singleton commander deck out of a booster box, and I believe all the players have chosen different editions, like different sets, to make their booster box out of, depending on what they to use depending on what kind of a deck they wanted to make.
Yeah. Kathleen's on Guilds of Ravnica because she wanted to do Demir. Wheeler's on core set 21 because that's what we gave him, and Shivam's on Ikoria because I think that's what he had.
Right, I think didn't we just raid the moon base for what we
Yeah, and
or-
I think when we got him involved, it was like, "What do you have that's a booster box?" He's like, "I've got Ikoria," and it's like, "Well, there you go."
Yeah, we
Good luck.
couldn't have the deck builds like in the cracking and deck builds live on camera because it's 100. That would be like the entire stream.
It would take a very long time.
And I know before you say it, I know you would people would want to watch a stream that is just us cracking hundreds and hundreds of packs because that's a very popular genre of show on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But actually,
You don't get it. It's too bad.
I don't know what Cameron's playing, by the way. So
random thing that I was actually just reading about. Lawrence72 mentioned the Gandhi in Civilization, the whole like nuke thing.
yes,
There was an interesting article that came out, or a thing that came out of Sid Meier's book that just came out, where that's actually it wasn't the story was that it was an overflow thing, that he was so peaceful that when something happened that was supposed to make him less
even more peaceful.
even more peaceful, it overflowed and he became really violent. Apparently that's not the case. It's just that how the programming for AIs of the guys worked at the time was that nuclear was an option that they would use, and the Indian AI was programmed to emphasize technology, and so they would often have nukes before other people, and threatening people with nuclear attack was actually was in the context of Civilization, Civ 1, I guess, was considered to be, it was because it's sort of the mad assured destruction thing. So that was like, it was a threat. It was aggressive, but it wasn't actually sending nukes.
Right.
And so apparently he would threaten people with nukes all the time, and and then it became a joke that then progressed into for the subsequent games. But yeah,
And
apparently
whoever came up with this thing of this -1 error clearly was lying about it. I guess. I don't know. Who knows?
Right.
What's next?
Anyway, and then after, so on Saturday, we have one more with James and an assortment of his friends. We'll be playing
See,
Valorant.
James gave up trying to add Lurin to the Valorant again.
No, it's there.
It says
Valorant.
Valorant.
Down there.
Oh.
Yeah. He didn't
Okay,
put it in the
sorry.
game.
He didn't put it in the game?
Yeah. He
No,
put it in the
the
team.
game-
Not commitment.
The game is Valorant. The team
Are you
is
sure?
Valorant.
I think the game is Valorant when James plays it. If he can get it going without problems.
And after one more.
And after one more, it is Rhythm Cafe.
Oh, right,
on
yeah.
Sunday.
Do you figure this out?
Are you playing
Yeah,
Rhythm Fighter?
I talked to Ian,
That's
and
good.
he is going to the Moonface like he's supposed to, like we originally agreed upon, and not the confusion of him thinking I was going to go for the game that I had not picked.
Ah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rhythm Cafe. So Rhythm Fighter, is that, do you fight to the rhythm or do you fight the rhythm?
I don't know, because that literally is not a game I picked to play. That was Ian's game, which means he's supposed to go play it. So I think you do pick a character of some sort, and there is like a rhythm-esque thing to it, but I haven't when it's not my responsibility to play the game, I don't look too deeply.
Mm-hmm. You have all that time to react then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get surprised.
Is there, Heather, is there a good place? Somebody's asking about Rhythm Cafe suggestions. Is there a good place for that?
We have a sheet for that. I thought there was a mod command, a chat command that brought it up, but I can't remember what it is because it's been so long.
All right. Well, there
So
might be
technically,
chat command.
you can tweet it at me if you really want. I sometimes look there.
Yes.
And then on Monday, we have the Zendikar Rising pre-release all day on Monday, starting at 11 o'clock, which is going to be super fun. We've got the Loading Ready Run crew plus Megan and Maria from Good Luck High Five. Good luck, have fun.
Good luck, high five.
Yes.
Good luck, have
GLHF.
fun, high five at a distance.
Do all those things. And that's gonna be super sweet. And then
Following that,
on Tuesday we have Talking Simulator. So over the next week, we've got a whole bunch of things happening during PAX Online, which is happening next week, which we should add to our calendar, I think.
Yeah,
Usually
let
we
people
don't.
Probably put like on PAX channel.
Usually we don't have
Nope.
things that are not on our channel, on our calendar, even when we're participating. But in this case, it is a pretty big thing. So we should probably, and we're trying not to stream against it.
Yeah, because we're hoping to host.
Hopefully,
that-
as long as we're
when
not,
we can.
Yeah. So yeah, we will take a look at the PAX Online calendar, and I believe there's a
If you go into the Lure
chat
Discord, into the cons channel, there's also a pinned message that has them all written there. For at least the stuff that Lure is doing. I don't know if the person who made that also included, because there are some other panels that you'll find some other people are on, like Beach and Corey are on Pat Bear's panel and stuff that's not technically Lure, but has Lure folk upon it.
yeah. But the thing that I wanted to point out on Tuesday morning that Paul's going to have to be awake for after being awake all day for the PPR is the Minecraft Punch a Chunk Express, or Punch a Chunk Challenge Express, which is a 2-hour stream starting at 10:30 in the morning, where James and Serge will be playing with Sly TQ and Pearlescent Moon. I have no idea what the team breakdown is yet, but they'll be doing a punching a chunk, or as much of a chunk as they can punch in 2 hours. And there is a charity donation element in it as well. Mm-hmm. And you will find out more about that as the time goes on.
It's also part of PAX Online, right?
That is part of PAX Online.
Just want to make clear where things are.
I have no idea if James is streaming from home or not, or how it's going to work, or any of that yet. But I do know that that will be on whatever PAX channel. That is happening live.
Yeah, that is one of the live segments.
And they're not doing a ton of live segments, is my understanding. So we're really happy that we got to be in on doing.
I mean, I can't imagine trying to do a 9-day event and try to make
everything
a
live.
Whole bunch of things live from a whole bunch of different people. That seems really hard. There's no way we can do a thing like that later, maybe.
Yeah, but please go check that out.
Most of our we have a bunch of Q&A panels. There's a Desert Bus Q&A. There's a panelists. All sorts of cool stuff happening. That's mostly pre-recorded stuff. But the Punch a Chunk will be live, and we'll be using donations to instigate boons and banes to the different teams in order to make their lives more silly. So yeah, check out loadingrayrun.com/live. That's got the whole calendar, and I think we'll probably try to put the our PAX panels in there as well, just so it's all in one place for you.
Yeah.
Cool.
We just need to list that they're not necessarily on our channel so that people don't get confused and come to the wrong channel unless we're hosting. Online is hard.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's talk about all the awesome people who subscribed during the stream. Starting with Time to Fry for 21 months.
Like tears and oil.
Miyari for 71 months. Hey, welcome back.
Natabu has been here for 30 months. Welcome back.
Dasano for 31 months. Thank you.
Bissaflo. Flaw?
Flow.
I'm going to say it too many times and mess it up in my brain. 4 months. Hey.
Diamond MX returns for 34 months. Welcome back.
Patron of the Moon for 40 months. I believe that was the Castlevania game.
Yeah.
Castlevania Patron of the Moon.
Oh, I play that. The Meerkat for 48 months. That's a square root of 12. No, it's not.
It's not. But it is.
It does divide into 12.
It's a 4-year anniversary.
4-year, yeah.
Nova Tiempo has been here for 25 months. That's a perfect square. Welcome back.
Scar Red Tiger for 50 months. Thank you.
Nova TMP 2 for 21 months. Hey, welcome back.
Bronze Finger. They've been here for over 79 months. That's so many months.
Dragonality for 22 months.
Is that what the fatality is from
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
So if Mortal Kombat was made up of dragons, would it be Dragon Talent?
Yeah, if it was a Panzer Dragoon crossover.
There was a guy in Mortal Kombat that literally did turn into a dragon.
Then it should be his
finishing move.
catchphrase.
Yeah.
Ard Rise for 45 months. That's divisible by 9.
Kuzuki has been here for 33 months. That's the product of 2 primes.
Choristi for 65 months. Thank you.
Kim J. Burge, 17 months.
Basil Hunter has been here for 44 months. That is divisible by 11. That's good.
Mola Molafant for 2 years.
Hey.
Thank you. 2 years of a fun to say name.
Nikon for 43 months. Hey, welcome back.
Moosefilled Cat has been here for 72 months. That's 6 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Cricket Chirps for 2 years. Ooh.
Listening to that.
Yeah, it's when you don't want that person to subscribe after you've just told a joke.
A Trophonian. Trophonian? Yes, I think that's correct. 46 months. All the trophies for Trophonian.
A Trophonian draws near. Pyro Niles, 80, has been here for 5 glorious months. Welcome back, Pyro.
Danny Lewis, 84 for 38 months. Thank you.
May Rosa has come back for 26 months.
James K902 has been here 33 months. Again, the product of 2 primes. That means it's you could use it as a public key.
Dump Truck Man, gifted by the Meerkat. His power is not pretty, but it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps us all without garbage all around us. So thank you, Dump Truck Man.
He's a man who's a dump truck man.
And for those 50 bits, thank you, Xanatos69.
The bits.
Right. Mild-mannered dump truckman is in fact secretly
Lawrence Dump Truckman.
is secretly dump truck man.
Sir Lawrence Dump Truckman.
Yes.
Yes, he was knighted back in the day. Keeps his sword on him to cut down trash.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll be back with Friday Night Paper Fight in an hour and a half or so. So talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.